what I would like to do this summer, because I think that was 3 or 4 years ago, but I told them I'll take an uphill belly. I don't know if I'll be able to get up. But if it's a day like now, I mean, today would be beautiful going up there. Go up early. So I think I might ask Mary later about setting a date and going up. Right, hi, my name's Sean Gallagher, and I did do a few, I did 4 YouTube videos in August, September 2020, mainly because I wasn't able to walk the Camino, and so I decided to do the YouTubes. And I'm doing this one today in the hope that I will be able to do a Camino walk in August, and I will tell you a little bit more about that later on. So the theme really of this YouTube is going to be the Camino never ends. And this quote was actually given to me by a French guy I met. We were walking in France once. Met him, he was actually sat in front of a tree having a rest, and we had a chat about where we'd been, what we were going to be doing, and as usual, you know, that's the usual talk. And he left me with this passing phrase, the Camino never ends. And that stayed with me. And I think it's very appropriate today when we think about the Camino never ending, because the numbers did dip considerably in 2020, but I'm sure that they will bounce back again in 2021, 2022. Well, if we go right back to the start when the Camino started, remember the Camino started in 850 when the remains of the Apostle St. James the Greater were found, claimed to have been found in what is now Santiago in Galicia. And then it all began then, this respect, the devotion to St. James. And that was because St. James was one of Jesus's close friends. If you want, he was one of the gang of 4 with Jesus, Peter, James and John, with Jesus in the important parts of his life. And so in 850 it all started, and the numbers grew rapidly. I mean, how they passed the information on, I suppose. I mean, they didn't have TikTok, they didn't have Facebook, right? But word of mouth spread that the remains were there, and the numbers increased up to 500,000. So it rivaled Rome and Jerusalem in the 12th and the 13th century. But then, like I suppose a lot of things in life, there's ups and downs. And massive downs then in 1350, when the plague reached its peak in Europe, killing millions of people. And I suppose a lot of similarities with the pandemic in 2020, with the numbers falling off drastically in 2020. So the numbers from 1350 started to go down seriously because of the plague, but also then because of the Protestant Reformation and because of unrest in Europe. And remember, we had this 100 Years' War with France. I mean, obviously we couldn't imagine anything like that happening now, but that obviously prevented people from this country and from Ireland walking through France, and that's why they found other routes of getting to Santiago. And then in the 20th century we had the 2 world wars, and we also had the Spanish Civil War, which from 1936 to 1939. So obviously there wouldn't have been many people walking to Santiago. But the numbers again have started to increase from the 1980s. So in 1986 there were approximately 2,000 people walked into Santiago, and that increased up to, in 2019, to 347,000 people. But then with the pandemic, these numbers reduced in 2020 down to 53,900. I mean, I still find it amazing that last year in 2020, so 54,000 people were able to walk into Santiago. I suppose when you look at the numbers, and I'll just mention the numbers briefly, but the number of people, of these 54,000 people who walked in Santiago in 2020, nearly enough 70% of those were from Spain. So in a way, Spain reclaimed the Camino in 2020 because people from other parts of Europe and America, Australia found it difficult to get there. So in fact, the numbers from the UK fell from 9,000 in 2019 down to approximately 600 in 2020. The numbers from Ireland fell from 7,000 down to 250. And in America, from the US of A, a massive reduction in numbers from 20,600 in 2019 down to only 438 people in 2020. So for me too, the Camino never ends. My first Camino to Santiago was in 1999 when I walked from San Jean-Pied-de-Port to Santiago across the Camino Frances without actually knowing that it was, if you want, this pilgrimage route. I mean, I did it for an adventure more than because of the devotion to St. James. But I did find it a massively spiritual experience and became addicted to walking on the Camino routes in Europe, and I then walked on those routes for a further 21 years until 2019. So 2019, I actually walked with two of my own children, Matt, who was 43, Ruth, who was 41, and two friends, Louis and Janet. And Ruth was actually in May 2019. She was 6 months pregnant, having her little girl in August 2019. And I had arranged to walk in 2020 from Porto up to Santiago, and that was cancelled because we couldn't get flights and accommodation. And I did intend to do that again this May, just repeat it in May 2021. But again, we've had to cancel because of problems with flights from the UK. Being optimistic, I have booked flights to Madrid in August, the middle of August. I booked flights for, obviously for myself, but for my wife, Dot, who's going to be walking her first Camino. She has been to Santiago before, but she's never actually walked the Camino routes. My son Matthew, who's walked several times, and granddaughter Seren, who will be 11 in June, and she's looked at the previous YouTubes and she's keen to start walking the Camino. So much so that she's actually got her rucksack packed and she's been reading the guidebooks already. So what is the plan then? So the plan is to get to Madrid and then make our way to Galicia. So what we're going to do, we're going to do a walk right just within the area, the region of Galicia. Right, so we're not going to complicate it by walking from Portugal into Spain or from walking from other regions in Spain into Galicia. So this will be the first time that I've done, I suppose, what I'd call a short Camino. I mean, previously I started in Geneva, I started in Le Puy, I started in Lisbon, I started in Seville. But this time I'm going to start in Galicia and plan to do a 6-day walk and actually get into Santiago. So what are the options? I mean, a lot of people don't think I do research, but I actually do quite a bit of research before I do set off walking or before I actually do anything. So what I want to do is just show you the different ways, the different routes in Galicia into Santiago itself. So I'll just get this map. And you can see here there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 main routes into Santiago, but 2 other ways, like the Camino Primitivo and the northern route, they merge with other routes, in particular the French way. So this route coming right across here is the French way from Saint Jean into Santiago. And I have done that one, and a lot of people walk from Sarria, which is 116 kilometres from Santiago. So I've discounted that one. I'm not doing that one, and that's the one that's likely to be the most crowded. Other options then is this one here, which comes up from the Via de la Plata from Seville, and comes through a beautiful town, Orense, and then up into Santiago, and that's 102 kilometres. And I'm just going to do that one again because I've done that one previously. And then a third option is to come from Tui or Valenca in Portugal, Tui on the other side of the river in Spain, in Galicia, and then walk up that route into Santiago. And I've actually done that one 3 times, so I've decided I'll time for a change, trying to do something different. And again, like I say, I've walked in on the northern route. So the routes that I've decided, I cut it down to two options. One of them was this route from Murcia, Finisterre into Santiago. And the distance from Finisterre into Santiago is about 85 kilometres. But if you do a round trip, Murcia, Finisterre, Santiago, then that gets you up to 115 kilometres. Right, but the one I've chosen to do is what's called the English way, or because of my Irish heritage, I call it the Celtic way. Right, but a lot of the literature says English way. So English way, Celtic way, or Camino Ingles. And there are 2 options there. There's one from A Coruña, right, and one from Ferrol. And from A Coruña straight into Santiago is 74k, and from Ferrol into Santiago is 118k. Now what you can do now, you can actually do, to build it over 100k, if you're coming in from La Coruña, you could actually do some walk in Ireland or in England, and you could still get the Compostela by getting it over 100k into Santiago. And this is indeed what the pilgrims from Northern Europe, from England and from Ireland did. Back in the day, they used to get instead of walking through France, and particularly in the war, that 100 Years' War with France, they would get the boats down to A Coruña and Ferrol and then walk into Santiago, and hence called the English way. So I decided that's what I would do. I would walk from Ferrol, fly to Madrid, then get a bus or train up to Ferrol and or Santiago, then to Ferrol, and then walk into Santiago. I've not arranged flights back yet. I mean, there's obviously different options to do that. I might even come down to Porto and fly back to Manchester, or fly over, go from Santiago over to Dublin and then come back to Manchester that way. So there's lots of different options, but that's the plan for August. So, like I say, I do a lot of planning. I like to plan, and now some people, like even friends, family, what they would do is they would just say, "I'm going." They pack the rucksack and go. They might not even have one book with them. But I've always been somebody who likes a guidebook, sometimes a map, although I'm not very good at map reading, but so I prefer the guidebooks. And I'll just show you 1 or 2 that I've got here. All right, going back, I mean this one here, wrong one. This one here is going back to the first walk in 1999, the Camino Frances, and I got this from the Confraternity of St. James. And again in May 2006, walking from Le Puy down to Saint Jean Pied de Port, and again from the Confraternity of St. James. And then in 2007, walking from Geneva to Le Puy, and again that's from the Confraternity of St. James. Right, so when I started in 1999, for those first few years, it was mainly books from the Confraternity of St. James, using their guidebooks. But I mean, one good thing is that have been other people now have got involved in writing guidebooks, as well as stories about their own experiences. So, and one of them here is which I do like, is John Brierley. He's done quite a few guides. He's got good maps and good little stories in there. And I used this one when I was walking from Lisbon, and obviously use it again. I've got later editions and use them from Porto. But in terms of walking from Ferrol to Santiago, I've actually got 4 books. I've got this one, The English Way, which is produced in Galicia in English. I've got this one by Susan Jagannath, right? The Camino Ingles, 6 days. I've got one by John Brearley, who's actually got in this book, he includes, as well as the Camino Ingles, he includes this circular route, Muchia and Finisterre. And then this other book, little book here by Matthew Harms, Anna Dinterman and David Landis. Again, Ferrol to Santiago on Spain's English way. So I do my research. What I also do is I actually go on the Facebook groups as well. And there is a Facebook group called Camino Ingles and Celtic Camino Official English Speakers Group. And the person who's the admin for that group is a guy called Johnny Walker, who also writes guidebooks, and I've got a couple of his here on the routes from Porto, one along the coast and the other one going inland. So the Camino Ingles, Celtic Camino from Ferrol to Santiago, will be the shortest Camino I've ever actually done with these 6 days. And the 6 days to do 114k, so that's plenty of time. I mean, a lot of people may do it in 4 days, even 3 days, 5 days. But because I'm walking with my granddaughter Sarah and my wife Dot, and I suppose we just want to enjoy it, and it does look a really lovely Camino, then we're going to spend 6 days over it and get a really good experience. The actual Ks per day range from, well, there's a 15, 15, 16, and then there's a 20, and there's just two. There's 124 and one at 125. So we will do it over the 6 days. And I would certainly recommend people who are thinking about doing this Camino to get these 3 books. The book by Susan Jagannath, who is also a big contributor on the Facebook group that I mentioned for Camino Ingles, the book by John Brearley, and this little book here. So of the 6 ways into Santiago in Galicia, I've decided to do this one in August. So thanks very much. I hope you found it helpful in some way and get something from it. Speak to you again soon.